Opposition leader Sean Tembo bold move, daily 9 a.m. calls to President Hichilema, here's why. At exactly 9 o'clock hours. Every single day. Opposition leader Sean Tembo has made an unusual promise. To call President Hakainde Hichilema daily, not once, not symbolically, but consistently. Is this political theater? A protest tactic? Or a calculated strategy to force engagement at the highest office in the land? Tonight, we unpack what this pledge really means, why it matters, and what it tells us about the current state of Zambia's opposition politics. Good day, viewers. Welcome to another edition of InspirAfrica Official. I'm Nakash. You know, we're closing out what has been quite an eventful week here in Zambian politics, and today, we have a story that's been making waves across social media, in parliamentary corridors, and even in the most remote villages where people gather around radios to hear the latest news. Our lead story today: an opposition leader's unprecedented campaign of daily phone calls to the nation's highest office, and the startling reason behind them. Picture this. Every single morning at precisely 9 a.m., as the sun climbs over Lusaka, as civil servants settle into their desks, as the President of the Republic of Zambia begins his daily briefings, his phone rings. And on the other end? The same voice. The same man. The same opposition politician making the same demand, day after day after day. What would drive a politician to make such a bold, some would say audacious move? Is this the desperate act of a marginalized voice crying out in the wilderness of political irrelevance? Or is this the calculated strategy of a shrewd opposition leader who has found a crack in the armor of power? What happens when traditional channels of democratic engagement seem to fail? When petitions go unanswered, when parliamentary debates echo in empty chambers, when the gap between the governed and those who govern becomes a chasm too wide to bridge through conventional means? And here's the question that should concern every Zambian watching this: what does it say about our democracy when an opposition leader feels compelled to pick up the phone every single day, knowing full well that his call might never be answered? What does it reveal about access, accountability, and the very nature of leadership in our beloved nation? Factual foundation, background and timeline. The revelation came to light in mid-December 2024, when Sean Tembo, the president of the Patriots for Economic Progress, a smaller but vocal opposition party in Zambia, took to social media with an announcement that caught both his supporters and critics off guard. For those unfamiliar, Sean Tembo is no stranger to controversy. An economist by training, a businessman by profession, and a politician by calling, Tembo has built his reputation on being unafraid to speak truth to power, regardless of the personal or political cost. His party, though not commanding significant parliamentary seats, has positioned itself as the conscience of Zambian politics, frequently raising issues that larger opposition parties might shy away from. The context for this extraordinary campaign begins in late November 2024. Zambia, like many African nations, has been grappling with a severe economic crisis, soaring inflation, currency devaluation, mounting debt, and the painful reality of fuel and food price increases that have left ordinary citizens struggling to make ends meet. President Hakainde Hichilema, elected in 2021 on a wave of hope and promises of economic transformation, has found his administration under increasing pressure. The honeymoon period has long ended, and opposition voices have grown louder, more persistent, more critical. On December 2, 2024, Tembo first publicly stated his intention to establish what he called direct democratic accountability with the president's office. His announcement was simple but striking. Beginning December 5, he would call State House every morning at 9 a.m. to speak directly with President Hichilema about urgent national matters. December 5 came. The first call was made. According to Tembo's social media posts that evening, the call was not put through to the president. He spoke instead with a secretary who politely took a message. December 6th. Another call. Another message left. December 7th, 8th, 9th. The pattern continued. Each day, Tembo documented his attempts on social media, building a public record of what he termed the president's unavailability to opposing voices. By December 15, 10 days into the campaign, the story had gained traction. Local media outlets began covering it. Political analysts started weighing in. The public, watching from the sidelines, became divided, some viewing Tembo as a publicity-seeking irritant, others seeing him as a determined advocate refusing to be ignored. Direct evidence, quotes and testimony. In a Facebook Live session on December 17, 2024, Sean Tembo explained his motivation in his own words. "I know some people are asking, Sean, why are you doing this? Why this daily phone call business? And, I want to be very clear about this. This is not about me. This is not about the Patriots for Economic Progress Party. This is about the fundamental principle that in a democracy, a real democracy, citizens, and especially elected representatives of the people, should have access to their president. I have tried, so many times, through official channels. I have written letters. I have submitted petitions through the Speaker of Parliament. I have requested meetings through the Cabinet Office. And what do I get? Silence. Complete silence. So I asked myself, what would happen if I just picked up the phone? What would happen if I treated State House not as some untouchable fortress, but as a public office, which is what it is, funded by taxpayer money, occupied by a public servant, which is what the president is? Every morning at 9 a.m., I dial that number. And every morning, I get the same response: the president is in a meeting. The president is not available. We'll take your message. But here's what I want Zambians to understand: I am doing this because somebody has to. Somebody has to demonstrate that we cannot normalize a situation where our leaders become so insulated, so removed from the people, that even a phone call becomes impossible. When pressed by a reporter from the mass newspaper about whether he believed the president was genuinely too busy to take his calls, Tembo responded, "Look, I'm not naive. I understand that a president has many responsibilities. But let me ask you this. If the Chinese ambassador calls State House, would the president be in a meeting? If the IMF managing director calls, would the call not be put through? The question isn't whether President Hichilema is busy. The question is, who does he make time for, and who does he consider worthy of his time? And if an elected opposition leader representing thousands of Zambians cannot get 5 minutes of his time after 2 weeks of daily calls, what does that tell you about who matters in this administration?" In response to Tembo's campaign, State House released a brief statement through the presidential spokesperson on December 19, which read in part, "The Office of the President wishes to clarify that all communication from political parties, civil society, and members of the public is received and processed through established protocols. The President maintains an open-door policy and regularly engages with stakeholders across the political spectrum through appropriate channels. Mr. Tembo's daily phone calls, while creative, do not represent the most effective means of engagement on serious national issues. We encourage the use of formal communication channels that allow for proper preparation, documentation, and substantive dialogue." Tembo's response came within hours. "So now they acknowledge that I've been calling. Good. That's progress. But they say I should use formal channels? I have used formal channels. For months. The appropriate channels they speak of are the same channels that have ignored me, ignored my party, ignored the concerns of thousands of Zambians we represent. This is the problem with our politics. Everything is about protocols and procedures, but nothing is about actual engagement. They want me to write another letter that will gather dust in some office while Zambians are suffering? No. I will keep calling. Deeper analysis, implications and reactions." The story of Sean Tembo's daily phone calls transcends the simple narrative of one politician trying to reach another. It opens up broader questions about democratic access, political communication, and the responsibilities of leadership in modern Africa. Political analyst Laura Mitty, executive director of the Alliance for Community Action, offered this perspective in an interview with Zambia National Broadcasting Corporation. What Sean Tembo is doing, regardless of whether you agree with his methods, is highlighting a genuine problem in our democracy. We have a situation where opposition voices feel so marginalized that they resort to what some might call stunts. But are they stunts, or are they symptoms of a deeper dysfunction in how we practice democracy? The opposition in Zambia, and this applies to many African countries, often finds itself in a paradox. They're expected to provide constructive criticism, to offer alternatives, to engage meaningfully with governance. But they're simultaneously locked out of meaningful access to decision makers. How can you be a responsible opposition when you can't even get a meeting? From the ruling United Party for National Development, UPND, the reaction has been mixed. Some party officials have dismissed Tembo's campaign as attention-seeking behavior unworthy of serious consideration. Information and Media Minister Chushur Kasanda, speaking at a press briefing, said, "If every politician in Zambia decided to call State House every day, the president would never have time to actually govern. There are systems in place for a reason. Mr. Tembo is free to make his calls, but he should not expect special treatment simply because he's being loud about it." However, some government backbenchers, speaking off the record, expressed discomfort with the optics of the situation. One UPND member of parliament told this reporter, "Look, we might not like Sean Tembo or his politics, but ignoring him for weeks doesn't make us look good either. It feeds into the narrative that we're no different from the previous government, that we only listen to those who praise us and shut out those who criticize." The larger opposition parties have watched Tembo's campaign with interest. The main opposition Patriotic Front and the Socialist Party have not officially commented, but sources within these parties suggest they're taking notes. Legal experts have weighed in on whether Tembo's calls could be considered harassment. Constitutional lawyer John Sangwai SC noted, "Legally, Mr. Tembo is not doing anything wrong. State House is a public office. He's not threatening anyone, he's not using abusive language. He's simply calling during business hours and requesting to speak to a public official." Now, whether this is politically wise or effective is a different question, but legally, he's on solid ground. From a psychological perspective, the campaign raises interesting questions about power, access, and symbolism in politics. Dr. Charity Muzamba, a political psychologist at the University of Zambia, observes, "What Tembo is doing is fundamentally about visibility and narrative control. Every day that he calls and doesn't get through, he reinforces his message that the president is inaccessible. Every day that State House doesn't engage, they inadvertently validate his claims. It's a clever, if risky, political strategy. But there's also something deeply human about it. We've all felt ignored at some point, by institutions, by authorities, by those with power over us. Tembo is tapping into that universal experience of feeling unheard." On social media, the debate has been fierce. Hashtags like #TemboCallsHH and #StateHousePhone have trended repeatedly. Public opinion appears divided along predictable partisan lines, but there's also a substantial group of citizens who, regardless of political affiliation, express frustration with what they perceive as political theater distracting from real issues. One Twitter user captured this sentiment: "Can we please focus on the cost of living instead of who's calling who? Both sides are playing games while we're out here struggling." Yet others see the symbolic value. As one Facebook comment read, "Even if the president never picks up, at least someone is trying to hold him accountable. At least someone is saying out loud that our leaders should be accessible." As of today, December 25, 2024, Christmas Day, Sean Tembo announced that he took a break from his calling campaign but would resume on December 26. The question remains, how long can this continue? Will the president eventually pick up? Will State House offer a formal meeting? Or will this campaign simply fade as newer stories capture public attention? What's certain is that this story has struck a nerve in Zambian society. It's forced conversations about access, accountability, and the nature of democratic engagement. Whether you see Sean Tembo as a persistent advocate or a publicity-seeking irritant, he's succeeded in making us ask uncomfortable questions about how our democracy functions or doesn't function. And perhaps that's the point. Thank you so much for watching today's edition of InspirAfrica Official. This is a developing story, and we'll continue to follow it closely. What do you think about Sean Tembo's daily phone call campaign? Is it a legitimate form of political pressure, or is it a distraction from more important issues? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one, and your perspectives help shape our coverage. We'll be back tomorrow with more stories from across Africa, stories of courage, controversy, and change. Until then, stay informed, stay engaged, and stay inspired. This is Nakash, wishing you all a peaceful Christmas evening. Take care, and we'll see you tomorrow.